Welcome, welcome everyone. Nice to be here, and I hope that you're able to engage this evening, have a pen, pencil, paper, actually have your brains in gear and relax and enjoy. I'm going to start out with a little quiz. Who's in the audience? This will give you an opportunity to learn how to use your phone for Slido here before we get into something more interesting. Are we seeing the active poll there? Yep, okay. Other. Okay, we got a lot of other here. Okay, welcome back. Okay, what a great mix. Thank you for your response. Okay, so for those of you that were not here last time, I'm just going to give a 2-minute, 3-minute review of what we talked about. Last time we started with the rabbit hole, using Alice in Wonderland as our metaphor, and the fall into the surreal world of the aftermath of betrayal. And the goal is to find our way back to reality. So what is a rabbit hole? It's a life experience outside the ordinary in which an action or a personal choice results in a domino effect of unanticipated consequences, followed by the pursuit of answers or the pursuit of highs that lead to more and more complications. We also addressed gaslighting and the denial of experience. Alice, after falling down a hole and being faced with a new reality, trapped in a place she did not fit, being shrunk, stretched, and forced to make decisions without information, encounters a demanding character who dismisses her experience. Okay, opening the door. This was another area we covered. And the realization that the door you open and the path you choose is your responsibility. So even though someone else may be kicking you through a door of their choosing, the way back to reality can only be found by embracing your own responsibility for healing. So on with the new, part 2, the pursuit of what went wrong, chasing white rabbits. Whether you were betrayed or the one who betrayed, chasing rabbits means getting sidetracked and taking off in a direction that will lead to further confusion. For the one who betrayed, the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland symbolizes being in too much of a hurry to connect with others. He's a symbol of urgency who lacks intimate connection to others as the result of trying to keep his head on his shoulders. For the betrayed partner, the white rabbit holds a different symbolism. He symbolizes the pursuit of answers seemingly out of reach. Alice's pursuit of the rabbit continues to lead her down the paths of deception. She can't help it. The white rabbit is a curiosity too intriguing to let go without further investigation. The frenetic energy of the white rabbit represents the inability to let go of the pursuit, whether one is trying to fill an emptiness that cannot be filled or to find answers to questions that cannot be answered. So I want you to think about chasing white rabbits. What would your white rabbit be? What are you running away from? Or perhaps running toward? What role does time play in your life? What drives the frenetic energy of your rabbit? What would happen if you let go of your pursuit? The path to betrayal is lined with surreal thinking and behaviors such as cheating on your partner, hiding behind behaviors while at the same time claiming love. Whether betrayed or the betrayer, living in this twist short circuits the brain's comprehension of reality. For the betrayed partner, everything that has been twisted is suspect. Nothing can be trusted, not even the ground on which they stand. To understand the surreal, you must enter its disorienting hallucination in order to see it for what it is. You must learn its mysteries, construct and navigate through it. This process makes it tangible. When you can grasp it, you can manage it. Flex your art muscles. They're the key to resiliency. Being a former art teacher, I believe that we all have creative capacity, yet too few of us choose to exercise these critical resiliency muscles. I've often heard, I can't draw a straight line. Perfect. It's not necessary. Involving our bodies and both hemispheres of our brains helps us in integrating what we need in order to heal. To get your creative juices flowing, look at the work of the surrealist artists such as Salvador Dali, Picasso, or Joan Miro. Here we have a few of them. How did your reality become twisted? In what ways has objectification torn your body apart? And you can think of it in so many questions, so many areas to explore. So I'm going to give you an opportunity. I want you to take the opportunity, and I know a lot of these you're going to have to do afterwards, but do take the chance if you can to do it. So your task is to create a surreal representation of your experience. It might help to start with a mind map of your thoughts. You can draw, paint, sculpt, or use whatever medium you prefer. You can look around where you are and within an arm's reach and use those items. Take one of your challenges. Let's say it's time. What does this look like? What shapes your time? How do you spend your time? This illustration here is a sample version of a time experience based on the clock you saw a couple slides back. You need to unlock your device to So it was things that came to my mind about time, the demands, the organization gets lost, the intrusions. So I really encourage you to play around with this. It is a very different way to experience, embody our understanding. Okay, let's do a little thought creativity for the moment. So think about what gets twisted in betrayal. Try and use one word. So whether it's time, trust. So see what you can come up with here. Love. Definitely love. trust, reality, connections, self-perception, truth, safety, confidence, self-esteem, self-perception. Yeah. Sex, relationships, connection, intimacy. And all of these are worth diving into, doing a little deep sea diving around. Intimacy. Wonder how it chooses which ones to do big. Definitely. Thank you. Okay. Moving on here. Another experience I want you to do when you get a chance. And really, these make such a difference when you actually participate in the doing of them. So for this exercise, I call sculpt and twist. You could use any sort of medium you can sculpt. I mean, if you have children, you can grab their Play-Doh. If you do any crafting stuff, there might be Fimo, or there's kids' clay. So whatever you can find to sculpt. And what I want you to do is put some time and effort into it. This engagement in the process is what's going to make a difference in the felt experience. After you've taken the time to do this, take a picture of it. I want you to get the before and afters of it. Don't bake it or fire it, because now we're going to do the next step. So in what you're going to take once you've done your hard work in shaping your beautiful reality here is I really want you to take it and twist it. And twist it. Think of all the ways that in your relationship you've been twisted. And I want you to actually do that twisting. Then set it down and take another picture of it. Then pick it up again. This is the state of your relationship. Can you untwist it? Can you put it back? Then what you want to do is, after you've done this, is actually write about the experience. So I'm going to give you that opportunity now, even though you won't have the actual experience of doing it. Just looking at those two illustrations, what was your gut response? What are some thoughts or ideas that come to mind as you looked at the twisted heart? Broken. Heartache, pain. Sadness. Irreparable. Yes, the original is lost. Regret. Thank you. Okay, here's an example of one of my clients when we did this in a workshop. He used bread dough. And I really wanted to use this example because he really emphasized how important it was to actually participate in the process of doing. He's one of these smart, really cerebral guys. You know, you can read a million books, you can do a million things, but until you take it from here and you embody it, you're not going to feel it. A lot of us walk around decapitated. We know it all here, but there isn't the connection this way. So the process of doing it is really important. So here he is. He makes his bread dough, and then he does love, and then I tell him to mush it, and so he smushes it together. And he said that was a very, very deep gut response to feel that. But he shaped it again, let the dough raise again, and baked it. So, and took a picture of it. And then he had another realization. His partner is gluten-free, and he didn't think to use gluten-free dough. So he realized his next step in the process. And all of that wouldn't have happened without actually doing it. So I encourage you to try the process. Okay, being invited to the table. The table was a large one, but all three were crowded together in one corner of it. No room, they cried out when they saw Alice coming. There's plenty of room, said Alice indignantly as she sat down in the large armchair at the end of the table. Have some wine, the March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all around the table, but there was nothing but tea. I don't see any wine, she remarked. There isn't any, said the March Hare. No room, they cried when they saw Alice coming. Have you ever been shut out, rejected, or shunned? I'm really curious if nobody has been there. Another second. Yeah, so far nobody. It's a horrible experience. 20% no. Wow. Okay. Thank you. As the percent goes up on yes, okay. No room. Now, for those of you who haven't felt it, try to imagine it. What do you feel or experience in your body when you are shunned or when you feel shunned? What do you feel or experience in your body, or even what part of your body feels it? Where do you feel it? Yeah. Panic in the gut, despair, disconnection, shortness of breath. Mm-hmm. Isolation. I'm trying to glance at the chat too. Okay. Okay, despair, shortness, sick to my stomach. Yes. Or at least I've experienced that one. Disappear. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna move on now. Okay. When this being shut out happens, we tend to go into some sort of mechanism of self-defense. So what is that for you? Are you the skunk and you put up a stink? Are you like the rattler and you use venom? Perhaps you're the bear and you attack with anger or snarl to let the other person know your displeasure. Maybe you're the beautiful poisonous dart frog that uses your poison. Perhaps you're the possum and you play dead. Or maybe you're the zebra that wants to blend in or find a new herd. Or maybe you're more like the red panda and you just want to sleep as long as you can and sleep it off. Or perhaps you want to hide in your shell. So of course I'm going to give you a chance to vote on which is you. Mainly bear and turtle. A little bit of rattler. Whoa, what happened? Did I do something? Yeah, I'll try going backwards. Oh, there we are. Okay. Well, we'll move forward anyway. Okay, let's see. It would be, of course, wonderful to hear what everyone has to say. Unfortunately, I can say I've had this experience all too often. One reason being I have my youngest daughter severely disabled, very severely disabled. So we have the opportunity all the time of having people be able to shut us out, unfortunately. Maybe I remember a time going to a community play. And it was open seating, but somebody who doesn't need handicap seating took it and was telling us we could sit in the back. There's plenty of room in the back. I turn into a bear. Now, if it was for somebody I love, my reaction is much different than, for instance, if it's for me. If it's for me, I'm probably just leave while I deal with it. So walk away. So that might be the turtle, that might be the zebra. But if it's for somebody I love, I'm not gonna back down. So I think that's interesting to look at too. How do we respond in different situations? And for what purpose? Okay. Addiction and betrayal are not the type of guests we want to invite to our table. They come uninvited, and we must learn to be gracious hosts. No way? This is a challenge when every fiber of our being screams no. Yet, having been all too often on the side of the unwelcome guest, the welcoming of a gracious host is an opening to possibility and even healing. What makes you feel welcome? Where do you feel the most welcome? How do you make yourself welcome so others can grow in the understanding you have gained? How do you change the tides? Reverse the course of a river, change the rotation of a planet. It's all too often that in our pain or our deepest hurt, it falls to us to support those we would expect to support us. This is part of the hero's journey of becoming who we fully are. This is learning to live in integrity and vulnerability. It's being able to make the host feel welcomed to their own table and grateful for the invitation to gain wisdom. This takes a lot of strength and humility, honesty, and integrity. It's part of our personal growth and healing. It's not something we innately know, but rather something we need to be able to risk learning. So a little bit of reflection here. What I want you to do is just pick one of these and answer, because this would be too much to answer all of them. But what makes you feel welcome? Or where do you feel the most welcome? How do you make yourself welcome so others can grow in the understanding you have gained? Or how do you change the tides? So just pick one of those. Warmth and safety feel welcoming. And so how do we make our places we live warm and safe? Empathy, huge. Working hard to drop my nervous, tense self so I can be a welcoming person. And what do we do to help with that? Compassion. Compassion for self. I'll tell you a little story as you finish this on the nervous, tense self. I had once a very horrible, rotten, no good, very bad experience and had to testify. And so in order to make myself feel better, I'm rather tall. So I've never had fashion boots because they always have heels on them. But I bought myself a pair of fashion boots that were nice and tall. And every time I was through the trial, I would smile because I knew what they were help me walk through all the manure. So no matter how deep the manure got, I would still be able to walk through it. So yes, smile, greet the betrayer. And it's hard. Slowing down to consider what is happening within me and outside of me. Yes, that mindfulness, that being able to be present. And definitely something we have to practice. It's not something that comes natural. We develop this over the years. It gets easier over time. Compassion and eye contact. Offer a hug. You have to know your person in offering a hug. During COVID, that might not go over so well. I'm learning to do air hugs. This would be a good conversation to have, even with your partner, with friends. Talk about it. When have you been in these awkward type situations? Now we move on. Judging and sentences before verdicts. Let the jury consider their verdict, the king said for about the 20th time that day. No, no, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Losing self in betrayal, the confidence it takes to keep relationship connections secure. I'm going to do that again. I don't have enough. Swallow first here. Okay. So losing self in betrayal deteriorates the confidence it takes to keep relationships and connections secure. People want to know they are secure in their intimate relationships. And when this is no longer the case, any little trigger or new evidence of a potential threat, a misstep, a cold shoulder, an old behavior, or an emotional combustion becomes evidence of wrongdoing. The verdict is passed based on the past, and the present becomes an ongoing sentence. This does not contribute well to the repair of the relationship. The tension of furious passions runs high when the wounds of betrayal are not fully addressed. What ensues is a quarrelsome atmosphere where both partners feel like stamping around, shouting, off with his or her head. Note, this goes both ways. Sometimes the betrayed partner may choose to discount any changed behavior with his or her partner. And sometimes it goes the other way around. The lash, and they go both ways. Sometimes the partner who betrayed gives up. They deem any effort as wasted. They check out or they rage back. And this negative feedback loop puts an enormous strain on relationships. So it's important to be mindful of the circumstances and events and all these things that contribute to the fury that wants to take people's heads off in relationships. By making note of these, we're able to address what contributes to them. There will likely be times when you give a sentence before evidence is examined, or you will feel sentenced without any evidence and not know why. And these times, it's really important to consider in what ways you judge before considering the evidence, in what ways you judge based on, you can fill in the blanks there, what is required in order to give the best possible verdict. In what ways do you judge before considering the evidence? So an example is you accuse first and think later. What else might you come up with? Anger. Anger sort of eliminates the capacity to think. What's going on when we have anger there? It's engaging our trauma response. We're more into fight, flight, freeze than we are to contemplating the nature of a tiger's stripes. Right, based off a previous experience. So there's no room for evidence. Or the evidence is just that hint. It doesn't require anything more than that. right? Self-protection leads to bias of information. Totally. Um, Assume the betrayer is guilty before asking for an explanation. And why is that? Um, Safety. We desire to feel safe in relationship. Doubt and lack of trust as listening to information. Yeah. So you can hear it, but you can't even take it in. You can't believe it. You can't verify it. Probably the most devastating thing to learn in a relation, to lose in relationship is trust. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so which of these do you think is required in order to give the best possible evidence? Verdict. Excuse me. So which of these is required in order to give the best possible verdict? Give it a minute here and see how the responses might change. Yes, openness to alternative perspectives is obviously important. Clear boundaries. Yes, how to, boy, that keeps shrinking. That means more people are answering. A moral compass. These are probably occurring in the order. It is most of these when you think about it. So what does openness to alternative perspectives allow? If we're not open to another person's perspective, it's very often it's very difficult to even take in any evidence that doesn't support what you've already, the verdict you've already come up with. A moral compass. Can we measure, look at, decide what is or is not happening and how we respond to what is or is not happening? Both require the moral compass. Clear boundaries. It's hard to know a verdict if we have no idea what the boundary is, because it wouldn't be defined. So good. Okay, relationship repair. Obviously, after all of this stuff happens, there is so much wrong, so much need for relationship repair. So how do we go about doing that? And like the last example or question, relationship repair requires perspective. Not only time and distance, but a willingness to see from another point of view. To do this, we must step outside our way of knowing the world in order to become more familiar with the unfamiliar. This doesn't mean going against who we are becoming. It merely requires an opening to another possibility. For instance, take a look at the drawing of the horse. Note the mane, the eye, the ears, a rather rough sketch, but a horse. Consider this an example of a personal perspective. Seeing a horse brings joy to mind, hay, land to run, maybe memories of joy or even fear of falling off. Having had a horse, I can recall her soft mouth and impossible thick mane. I loved her strong-willed character, except the time it took me 3 hours to load her into a trailer. Not everyone will share my perspective or understand the awe of being connected to this wonderful creature. Some will have no context, and others may have a negative experience that colors their view. I shared my stories and my perspectives with my partner. He was able to see the joy I wore after riding. He shared the joy on occasion and experienced trepidation when I arrived home with a broken rib or a head concussion. My partner was able to share my perspective, and although it would have been wonderful to have him also share the same appreciation, that was not him. He's a hydrologist. He loves nature in its natural state. We can share perspectives, honor the differences, and enjoy each other's point of view without having to make it our own. When I look at the frog, the same image, by the way, turned on its side, the warm feelings and the joy of being with my horse is gone. I prefer the horse smells to the pond muck. I prefer the joy of cantering across a field to the muck that sucks me into its marrow. Yet I can still enjoy the interesting beauty of the frog, even though I lack the desire to hug it. And I definitely would not kiss it, although I did kiss my horse. I look forward to the frog chorus in the spring that reverberates in its intensity, and I enjoy the calm solitude of the pond, even if I lack the desire to step into its muck. To simultaneously hold differing perspectives is very tricky. I turn the image on the side. Maybe this helps you a little bit to see it from a diagonal. It's easier for me to see both images at one time. So how do we do this? What do we need to do? Is it a mere turning on the side? Or is it something else we need to try in our relationships to be able to simultaneously see each other's perspective? We need to be able to hold our partner's perspective with our own. So both, even though we do not have to hold our partner's perspective as our own. So this is tricky. The lived history that leads to betrayal is not an excuse or a ticket to pass the required repairs. It does help us put it in context, and this context is part of the healing. For whatever reason you decided to commit to your partner, you value them and saw in them their potential. The eroding of this potential can be turned around, but neither of you can do it on your own. That is why so much of healing must focus on self. Sorry, I twisted my knee there. When our goal is to look outside ourselves, we take away from the strength we need to heal. And just like the images above or on our side and we've seen before, our relationships require the holding of more than one perspective at a time. So as you can guess, I have an activity for this. I'm calling it turning perspective on its side. So this is just a word game here. We're going to try changing the perspective. So in this case, I want you to change one letter at a time. And I want you to start out with a challenge, such as fear. And fear can prevent us from being able to see our partner's point of view. So fear can tear us up, or it can put us into tears. So, and if we were to change that, maybe if we keep our deer in mind. So here we have, I caused my partner fear by slipping into old habits. This leads to a flood of her tears. When I keep my deer in mind, I am more mindful of my behaviors and able to better switch into a gear of compassion. Okay, so here we have it again here. So deny. So if we change that Y to a T, we come up with dent. Tent. Maybe if we deny what's going on, we're going to put a dent in the relationship and somebody's going to end up in the tent. Anger. Danger. Ranger. I don't know. Creative. Pain, gain, rain. Maybe the rain needs to wash away. I don't know. So anyway, I want you to play with these. Another example, fear, tear deer. Well, that was the first one. Lies. When lies are used, a strong relationship dies. Only when each person grows and truly tries can trust be repaired and the relationship revised. Okay, you ready? I'm going to make you do this. Turning perspective on its side. So here's how you're going to do it. Start with a word that describes the challenge. So come up with a list of challenge words first. What might a challenge word be? Then you're going to change one letter, two if needed. Sometimes we pick words that are really hard, so we might need to change a couple to get a new perspective. One getting closer to what your partner may have. So then you're going to write how your perspective will be seen slightly different for your partner. Your partner's fear that emerges with an old familiar habit may turn into a flood of tears. So that's the idea of what we're doing. 3, again, change one letter to create a third word to achieve an antidote, a solve, or a tool in managing these perspectives in a healing manner. Okay, give it a try. So perspective shifting, 3 words. So the first word is a challenge. Second word, you change one letter to get a slight change. If you would need to use 4 or 5 words to get to the desired word, that's okay too. But just change one at a time. For some people, it's easier to use rhyme. You can use rhyme if you want. So either changing one letter at a time or rhyme, whatever it takes. Trust, rust, just. Okay, great. Now, if you can let us know what that is, how are you transforming that? When I can't trust, the relationship rust. When I want to be just. Okay, good, good, excellent, excellent. This is a really fun group activity. Sometimes just brainstorming the challenge words before people take off to do the second 2 parts is easier. Deceive, believe, receive. Oh, yes. So how you do that one? Oh, here's another one over here. Rage, stage, age. Okay, so how does the progression work there? Rage, stage, age. Does the rage age you? I bet you have a better explanation. Age, oh, maturity. Stage allows expression. Very good then. So you go from rage to being able to express, having a stage or giving a voice, um, to maturing with age. Oh, love it. Thank you. But we give it another minute before we go on here. I can't listen. It makes the heart a piston. I can lower my fist. Good. Thank you. Stray, stay, pray, play. Yes. One of the more difficult things we lose when there's betrayal is this sense of playfulness, the sense that there can be humor, um, because with the need for safety, that doesn't feel as possible, but so important to healing. So review, resolve, renew, mend. Yep, renew. Good. Bring this to your next group or do it with your partner. Um, I had a group in the fall that were two groups that were going on at one time. One was the partners group, and the other was the betrayers group. And most of the participants had their partner in one or the other, and they came up with a lot of good synergy between the two groups. Um, so a couple of the partners worked together. Hate, rate, mate. When all I could do is hate, I would rate all of his motives. When I grew, I was able to be a mate. Whew, brilliant. I love it. Way to go. Okay. Continue to play. This can be a lot of fun. This is a similar exercise, a little bit different, because the words again is engaging our thinking part of our brain, and the drawing gets us into a different part. Um, if you're familiar with Escher, this is one of Escher's drawings. He has several that he does like this, and of course there are other people who have done it. So he's changing perspective in the drawing as it goes. So are you seeing, what did you see first? Did you see the fish or did you see the geese, the flying geese? And as you look at it closely, spend some time on it, you can see how it starts to morph. Another way of using this, besides drawing your own, is using the different ends, the fish versus the being underwater versus being able to fly. Talking about transformation, what steps are taking place in your relationship as you transform to a different way of being, whichever way it is. If you're the fish who wants to fly or the bird who wants to swim. So what are the steps that it takes to come to a better understanding, a better connection between the two of you? So you have this in your handout, and Escher, if you don't know how to spell that, E-S-C-H-E-R. Escher. So you can look that up online and you'll come up with a lot of his drawings. He does a lot of things with perspective as well, where you're always walking up the stairs, even though you can't always walk upstairs. So some are going down, some are going up, but he has fun drawings to look at that are good for any exercise related to perspective. Okay, awakening to a reality. Alice, that's not a regular rule you invented just now. It's the oldest rule in the book, said the king. Then it ought to be number one, said Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting him. No, no, said the queen. Sentence verse, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentence first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you, said Alice. She had grown to her whole size by this time. So as Alice begins to return to her true size, she's embracing reality, and she's denying the absurdity of the nonsense and the meaninglessness that she's been in her wonderland. So as she comes to the sense of reality, she's able to break free of her dream illusion that binds her as she gains confidence in her being and thinking. Like Alice's adventures in Wonderland, escaping addiction requires facing reality. The environmental, psychological, social, and biological landscape of addiction plays a role in shaping the addiction. It takes work and healing in all of these areas, along with sustained effort to rewire the altered brain. So thinking of your own experience in recovery or healing, or both, what are signs, thoughts, actions, or behaviors that you're awakening to a new reality, a reality of recovery and healing? Triggers lesson, yes. Setting firm boundaries. You gain confidence in being able to set the boundaries. Greater joy, more open to others. Yes, these are great. And these are so important to take note of. Being rested, yes. Because as you're able to take note of these, you're able to, otherwise it's hard to measure progress because it isn't overnight. More acceptance, more open to others, laughing more, being able to be present. That was the greatest gift I learned from my horse, is because if I was not present, I would have been on the ground. So empathy displayed, yes, yes. And there's so many things that keep us away from empathy, but that is so critical. Good. Take note of these. Take note of all the ways you're able to keep track of your progress. You know, being able to try new things rather than being scared and hiding. Yes, definitely. Remember, the hero's journey doesn't happen without a lot of bumps and bruises. It's the way we need to grow. Okay, beautiful. Oop, we just had one. Realizing your fears. Let's go back. Realizing you didn't obsess over the fears like you did before. And being surprised. Yes. Okay. This is seeing consequences of my actions. We missed that one from the last one. So thank you for adding that. Navigating life requires being able to find our way, not with a map or not with GPS, but with a sense of meaning and purpose that reflects and honors our connection to a greater whole. Our survival depends on our connection to others and the places in which we live, not leave, the places in which we live. Earlier, we discussed the importance of values and their principles in developing congruency and their necessity in our becoming. This is also important in a healthy relationship. When promises and expectations, along with values and principles, are lived in a congruent manner, trust is built, and partners can feel safe in their relationship, which contributes to increased intimacy, resiliency, and well-being. So creating a dynamic and healthy relationship, and that's why I show this in a form of a gyroscope. One way which we try and express ideas ends up being two-dimensional too often, and we don't take into consideration that there's action and movement and continual change. So I'm going to go back to the flat because that's an easier way to present. But I want you to keep in mind that these are all integrated and they're constantly moving. And it's the dynamic force between the different polarities that are so critical in our relationships. So it requires us to share power as well as strength. There needs to be love, practice with respect, and the ability to share meanings and interests. So I'm thinking of these as your polarities. The healthy relationship needs to be rooted in honesty and understanding, along with the ability to be able to turn toward each other in an open manner that makes conflict management and repair possible. So this works better than the compass. This is another gyroscope, just different layers of complexity there. So I'm going to move on to the 2D here. Now think of this as one angle of that gyroscope, one dimension of it. In SAA, they often talk about the 3 circle behaviors. I'd like to talk about becoming versus eroding. Eroding is our addiction. This is everything that goes against who we really are. You may say these are the inner circle behaviors, or this is the abstinence list. These are anything that takes away from who we are. So what we need to focus on is our becoming. If we're not strong in who we are and what we are, it's too easy to erode. So this is the core. Now these are polarities. We're looking at self versus shared when it comes to a relationship. If we're not strong in who and what we are, it's too hard to be in relationship. So knowing self is one of the key cornerstones to intimacy. And that makes it possible to share power. If we look at love and respect, those are they're not opposites by any stretch of the imagination. That's not what these are meant to be. So love requires respect. We can't have one with the other. Honesty and understanding. And when we have all of these things, it makes honesty easier. When we have shared meanings, it's easier to have repair. And these are more self in this area. These are more couple, if we look at them in that way. Now, I know I have a lot in this particular section. So if you have questions at any point in time, just feel free to ask because there's a lot in here. Okay, so becoming is when we're in the process of integrating and aligning our values in a manner that's congruent with the way we live our life. Eroding is when we make decisions and choose to live in a manner that is contradictory to our values and out of congruence with connection to self and others. And it's both, without connection to self. So in addiction, eroding behaviors take away from sobriety. They're behaviors that lead to acting out, as well as the missteps, the deviations, distractions, exclusions, and other behaviors that weaken the foundation of maintaining sobriety. Who we are, or who we believe ourselves to be, is a driving factor in our daily behavior. When we believe we are hopelessly, fundamentally flawed, it's an overwhelming challenge to act in a manner that is aligned with our values, visions, meanings that we hold for life. So the fact of the matter is we are all flawed, all of us. Perfection is not what makes us whole. It's our journey towards becoming that matters. The dimensions of health are a more practical and down-to-earth way in how we become healthy. These are not the dimensions of health, that is, aren't the components of a hero's journey or the flawed person becoming. Rather, they're what makes the journey doable. So these are what we need to be resilient and to be whole so we can continue on our hero's journey. So what are the basic ingredients of living and healing from trauma and addiction? Symbolically, I'm looking at these in the dimensions of health. This is a spiritual dimension. And when I think of spiritual, it's meaning and purpose, compass. It's that which shows us which way we're going in life. Environmental. Somebody earlier said a place, I forgot the exact words, warmth, security, a place of safety, a place of, is what contributes to a place of welcoming. So our environment, whether it be the larger environment or the environment where we sit and work, or the environment in which a relationship takes place. So that's important. Who are our connections? This is our social part of our well-being. Who are we connected to? How do we nurture that in a way that helps in our becoming? How do we avoid that takes away from or erodes who and what we are? Of course, diet and exercise is the first thing we think of when we think of health, or the more basic things. So how do we exercise our bodies, our minds, our spirits? What do we fill our bodies with? What do we eat? What do we take into our bodies? Then there's our cognitive part. How do we keep our brains sharp? How do we exercise that part? How do we gain knowledge? And then there's the emotional component. So how do we avoid cognitive distortions? So these are the basic dimensions of health that we need to exercise that make possible, that strengthen our becoming or contribute to our eroding. Now, this is another way of looking at it if we're put this in another dimension in the gyroscope. So in defining, these are the different dimensions I'm looking at here. So these are different ways we can look at it. How do we define who we are? How do we integrate who we are in relationship? How do we aspire? How do we nurture? How do we connect? And so in these different quadrants, they go out. So this is the concept. This is self. This is relationship. And then we have the outer ring, being the broader community. So who am I? Who am I in relationship to others? Who am I in relationship to work and community? How do I integrate that? So what are my values and my vision? So how do I practice my values and my vision in a congruent manner in my daily life? And in what ways do I honor others' values and visions and realities? And then in the broader context, how do I integrate my way of being with others while maintaining healthy boundaries and a clear definition of self? Now, when we move to aspire, how do I care for my soul? This is the existential part of being that longs for meaning and purpose and living. It's our personal compass that allows us to navigate life. How do I bring awe into my relationship? Awe connects us to wonder and inspiration while prompting us to seek new and diverse experiences. In what ways do I bring awe to and inspire others? Nurture. How do I care for my body? How do I nurture my intimate relationships? How do I maintain balance in nurturing all parts of myself in connection to other? It's the in connection to other that's so critical. And connect. Who am I in relationship to others? How do I maintain self in my connection to others? In what ways do I connect with and contribute to family, friends, community, and society? So that brings us to the end. And that's where you can reach me, get a hold of me.